Hi everyone. The guest for today is Rashid. Rashid is from Mexico. He has been working on a lot of global opportunities as a product manager. He has been in the tech domain, product management domain. He has done multiple hats, like being consulting from doing for other companies to doing things for himself. Like over the last 4 years, has been wearing multiple hats. And so, please welcome Rashid to our podcast, Be Remote podcast. Hey Rashid, welcome.
Hey, Raghu, thanks for having me here.
Awesome, awesome. So it's always a pleasure talking to fellow product managers, Rashid. Like, I mean, being a product manager, I can fully relate. I can fully correlate with what really happens in product management, and like, I mean, it's always a different feeling whenever I speak to a different product managers. So, Rashid, probably why don't you just give a quick introduction about yourself, especially the journey. Like, I mean, how was your journey so far, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic journey, Rashid?
Yeah, sure. Well, more than a product manager, yes, of course. This is how we define this kind of job. But I think of myself more of like an entrepreneur, right? And part of being an entrepreneur is managing products.
Yep.
So yeah, I started working in the automotive industry. I started my first company when I graduated. I got together with some engineering friends, and we started working right away into the automotive industry, which it was really cool. It was really demanding because there is no room for error. That could cost you potentially hundreds of
Yep.
thousands. So and then I just developed a new brand from that company, which was focused on creating
Hmm.
innovative digital products. So
Hmm.
we started creating our own products from scratch, and also for other companies, and trying to build spin-offs and companies on top of those products. So that was like a really cool journey. I think that is where I actually learned most of
Hmm.
what I know now.
Hmm.
And for the last 4 years, yeah, 4 years, I have been working on my own as a consultant. I set up my consultancy, and I have been doing well all that I learned just a couple of years before this pandemic started. So I have been working on technical product side, helping
Hmm.
companies to launch new products and new business initiatives through digital
Hmm.
products.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I was working remotely pretty,
Hmm.
pretty good before the pandemic started. So not much changed for me.
Okay. This is super interesting to know, Rashid. I think there are very few people who were working before the pandemic as well remotely. I think that's a good part of our work, being in the technology domain, Rashid. Like when you get a chance to work remotely.
Yes, of course. My parents say that I was born for the apocalypse. I was ready. So yeah, well, in a way, I have always been prepared to work this way, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is Thanks a lot for joining the podcast, Rashid. Like, I mean, thanks a lot for this pretty good podcast. So, quick, we'll get into the deep dive into remote, Rashid. Like, I mean, so I think I really want to touch upon a couple of points. So, especially from a product manager perspective, like, I mean, how you manage remote work. Like, I mean, I think it's good that you have been working remotely way before the lockdown or the pandemic part. Like, I mean, so for fellow product managers or fellow technology workers or fellow developers, like, I mean, so how do you share your remote working journey, Rashid? Like, I mean, so this since this podcast is more towards the remote, like, I mean, so how is your day in day out stuff? Like, I mean, how do you manage yourself? What kind of like, I mean, processes that you follow to like, I mean, keep yourself occupied, connected with everybody rest of the team? Like, I mean, so especially product management is a domain where there are a lot of interactions with potential customers, like, I mean, potential stakeholders, like whether it's marketing team, sales team, finance team, like, I mean, technology team. Product manager is more of a interpersonal, like, communication related work. Like, I mean, how do you do that, Rishi? Like, I mean, how's your day in day out journey? Probably you can
Yeah,
start with that. Yeah.
yeah. That you said something important. I think it's about interacting also with customers and sales. So I would say that's the first part. That's the entry point for me. I started first selling, selling my services over the
Yeah.
internet with
Yeah.
unknown people who
Yeah.
had never seen my face. And that was kind of, was hard at first because no one was really used to that. So I started I started from several platforms on over the internet, meeting people and trying to sell myself and sell my services to this kind of clients and companies. So that was the first point. That first the first entry point, and I had to master it to be comfortable trying to explain something that was usually done face to face, right? Because no one wanted to hire someone who had an unknown face.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was the first part, and after that you start working and proving yourself and gaining the trust of your clients, and eventually products and the projects start getting larger. So now you have to interact with more people. You have to get into your team more developers and designers, and if you have to integrate with a department from your client, well, then you have to learn how to interact with other people that is not in your company. So that became a challenge at first, because everyone was more comfortable, trying to set up a face-to-face meeting. Some of them actually, those that were from Mexico, wanted me to go to their offices in another city. So it actually happened really few times. The times that I really gave in to traveling, but most of the time we could agree on a workflow, a remote workflow. So eventually, my clients got comfortable with this. I got confident with this. We just started focusing on efficiency, trying not to waste everyone's time with face-to-face meetings, and everyone started to go, way faster, way faster, and we started discovering, that efficiency was gained by doing asynchronous work. Today we are all used to asynchronous working, but back then it was kind of new. So that's how I started. Then, when the pandemic came, I was already doing that. And it was actually very helpful because now everyone has the mindset of remote work and asynchronous work. Even meetings have decreased, you know, a lot. So that's one thing. And the other thing is you have to get comfortable with knowing different ways of communication. For example, I get some developers that like you know calling maybe a few times a day because they need some guidance, or they need to shoot some of their ideas to enhance the product, and they're comfortable talking in video calls, and they like that, and they feel appreciated because you take the time to jump on a call with a couple of your team members. And there are others that they clearly prefer not to be bothered while they are working, right? And they can tell you, hey, whichever question or whichever request or new task, just post it on Jira and I will take a look. And if I have any question, I will write you back, right? And they avoid all kind of human communication, but that's the way they work, right? So you keep learning. I still keep finding new ways of communicating with people because not everyone has this same availability towards other people, right? And you just have to juggle with that and make everyone comfortable in the way that the whole team is working.
Makes sense. Yeah. So I think you really touched upon an interesting point in remote working, Rashid. So remote is majorly asynchronous and not in person, right? Like I think these are like two key attributes that really define remote work. So one very curious question I have, Rashid, you mentioned some of the industries that you worked are let's say in automotive, automobile, and different set of wider industries. I completely understand if it's a technology, pure play technology product, it's easier to interact. But let's say if we are a product manager working in anything related to supply chain or automobile or anything related to real world interactions, how do you think product managers should be able to pick this up and do this work remotely generally? Rachel, your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Well, I may not be the best person to answer this question, Raghu, because I stepped out of that industry years ago.
Yeah.
I actually migrated towards software products, because of all the culture that that is involved, right? Which is it's a better fit for me.
Yep.
So, but my co-founders are still working on this part, and I can see that remote work, at least here in Mexico, is in this kind of very established industries, is not as widely accepted or adopted as in the rest of software industries, right? They still have to travel a lot. And of course, you have to do a lot of in-field work, right? Because you're dealing not only with software, but with hardware.
Yeah.
So I think that there are some industries that will have, a harder time adopting remote work. But I have also seen that for several processes that do not require hardware or inside visits, they are moving towards it. But people is kind of getting mixed signals, because they're getting more freedom to work remotely, but their duties require them to be present. So a lot of my friends have migrated 50% remote and 50% inside, right?
Yep.
The companies in the automotive industry, for example, are more flexible, but they cannot enjoy the whole benefit or new benefit of 100% remote work. Not yet.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very particular case for several industries.
That's right. In fact, I actually recently read this article, Rashid, and bumped into this article where large automobile manufacturer like Ford, they also started getting into hybrid working. So people call it hybrid. Let's say you have to be let's say a couple of days in a week. For 2 days of the week, we have to be in present physically, and rest of the days can be remote. I think some of these companies are really trying out. I think in that perspective, I think remote is still pretty going really good, even for these domains, Rashid. I think that's a good point, valid point you mentioned over there. Awesome.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
So coming to the next part, Rashid, how do you manage communication? The kind of tools, the kind of processes, the documentation that you follow, everything being a product owner, being from a product in charge or product owner, how do you manage the communication across multiple stakeholders, Rashid? How does the communication part, do you regularly get on scrums daily, a daily sync up, weekly sync up, and things around that? Probably some thoughts on that, Rashid.
Yeah, well, that's still a challenge, because you have very different profiles. That every stakeholder from a different area has a different profile and different requirements and different ways of communicating, right? So let's start for the obvious part, which is engineering. I used to work a lot with Scrum. But yeah, a lot of there's another stream right now that you probably know, that there are some authors claiming that Scrum as an agile framework is not that agile. It's becoming quite rigid, right? So I don't take any part on this debate, but it made me think, right? So it made me try some new stuff and try relaxing part of that framework. So yeah, let's say for engineering or new engineers, when there is onboarding going, yeah, I like having daily stand-ups because that helps everyone to get the context of not only one project, but also who your teammates are and what their attitude is and how they get involved and how they participate. And you start getting information about the project, the task, and the team, right? And as soon as everyone, the newcomers start getting comfortable expressing and interacting and developing, well, we start relaxing, and then let the team, that particular team, because sometimes I have to manage different teams, and every team gets their own organization, their own way of organizing, depending on who's on the team at that moment, right? So then I just jump into the way that they like to work, right? Some of them like keeping daily stand-ups, and some of them just like getting closure meetings, and some of them just let's just keep communication whenever we need it, and let's not plan any kind of meeting or call.
Right.
So that's one thing, but I think that the easiest part is working, for me at least, is working with engineering. Then you have creative teams, and they have their own workflow. So yeah, for when I get to work in projects that are mostly creative, for example, for advertising or creative agencies, then well, you have to juggle with how your engineering team is working, and then you have to agree on a way of communication with another team, right? Usually,
Right.
I like just setting communication with one person from that team, and just fill the gaps about what they are doing, what we are doing, and how we can fit the work, and then the next step is presenting the work to another stakeholder, maybe the product owner, maybe the client or the manager, or any other stakeholder there. Usually they fall farther from the technical part, so you have to get another way of communicating, because with UX designers and with developers, you can just show the briefs or show some mock-ups, some sketches, right? Or maybe some reports about testing, or whatever technical thing you have to express progress. But when it comes to people that is falling outside the technical part, well, you have to be creative there, right? Because sometimes the best way to communicate with the progress is showing a part of the product. But if you're working on, let's say, databases or cloud services or something that is not yet user-facing, then you have to think of another way of communicating progress towards your non-technical stakeholders, right? So what I do is try to set up, to agree a framework, or maybe it could be a timeline, or it could be a checklist, or it could be some other deliverables like performance reports, that even though they are not they are meant to be read by technical people, you can still explain what that means to your non-technical stakeholders, right? So they need to get the confidence that the project is going forward under time and under requirements, right? And then when you get to the user-facing features, well, it becomes easier. And that's when you can start leveraging some really cool tools like, for example, visual feedback tools,
Yep.
and a lot of DevOps. So everything you start pushing can be reviewed by your QA team or your non-technical stakeholders, or even the first prototypes get to your final clients or your final users. So I would say, closing this point, I would say that you have to agree most of the time for every profile of stakeholder that you have on the project, how how what the way of making them comfortable following the project's progress would be for them, right? Like, you have to understand they are your clients, of course, and you're a
Yep.
project
Yep.
manager. You have to
Yep.
design something for them so they can enjoy and they can understand what's going on. But I would say that will usually be very different depending on the type of stakeholder, and sometimes even the profile of that person, because not everyone understands progress
Yep.
in same
Same
under
way.
the same
Yeah. Yeah.
basis. Like, some of
Yeah.
them want to play, to push buttons, to see it in action, and some of them are good with reports and mockups.
Yeah. Yeah. Visual output, right? Anything that's visually tangible output. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So, in fact, that brings me to a very interesting point that keeps happening, revolving around remote, Rashid. So, let's say when we are in a very office or physical environment, we know the person is in front of us. We keep seeing him constantly, day in day out, in front of us. Like when we see the colleagues, everyone in the office. Like in a remote setup, like we don't know how long the developer or any other stakeholder has been spending time. Like how do you think like that comfort or layer of trust, like for a completely new person who is newly getting onboarded onto the team? I think for the existing people, we know their work style, we know their work ethics, we know how good they are with their work. But let's say, for example, we are onboarding a completely new person we haven't ever met or we haven't seen completely. How do you think a remote plays out in such scenarios, Rashid? And what do we do to build that initial trust, initial icebreaker, initial moments of comfort, like from both sides, right? Even the developer or the particular stakeholder needs to get a comfort on the team, like while building the relationship with the team, and he has to do all this through digital channels, like whether it's like a Slack that we have a communication channel or some of the communication groups that every company has. How do you think this new onboarding and this new trust building in a remote scenario, your thoughts on that, Rashid?
Well, yeah, that's a natural process. It always happens when you get to work with new clients and new teammates. So I think uh, that part hasn't changed at all. Being responsive and having a good will to communicate any progress or even any issue or unexpected problem. That's the first part. You shouldn't lose that just because you're working asynchronous. Like, I have seen some people that they tend to leverage the asynchronous work to start making gaps bigger, communication gaps bigger, just because they don't like to communicate when things go wrong. I think that's a pretty big mistake. You should keep communication flowing, even if things are going badly. So that when you're working with new people, it could be a teammate or it could be a new stakeholder.
Right.
Well, the first 2 weeks are crucial. You have to be as responsive as you can, obviously without losing efficiency, right? Because you're juggling a lot of parts of this project. But you have to set apart some time to communicate with the newcomers at a certain point of the day. Even a message, you can record a Loom video, or you
Yeah,
can,
asynchronously record a video and share it with the
yeah,
team. Yeah,
exactly. So, but not only sending, you have to wait for a response. And if you get it, because maybe the other person is comfortable with what you sent, but maybe they had some issues, or they had some problems or questions. So you should be there to answer those questions, and so they can know that you have their back, right? So and that means, as you're working with people all over the world, that means not shutting your phone to everyone after a certain
right.
time, right? At least that's how it was for me. I My team knows that after a certain time we all get some rest, right? So you
Yep,
know
yep, yep,
when to search for anyone on your team. But when you
yep.
have newcomers, you have to be more open and more available, because you're building trust, as you said. So it doesn't take you much to shot a message, or to text this person, or to answer a call, even if it's midnight, just 5 minutes, so they know that you're responsive, and that your
Yep.
team is working. Someone in your team is working at some place to work. So just there, and once you have built the trust, then everyone starts relaxing, and they start trusting each other, even if they don't get a word in 3 days from them, right? Because they know that everyone is doing their job. So when the milestone gets here, and the date comes, everyone puts out the work that they have developed, and you see that everyone has a piece that is fitting as expected, right? But that will only happen if you invest the time at the beginning in building a relation of trust.
Hmm. Yep. I think being there for people, I think always being available, I think whenever they need, and building that trust is the key. Rashid, I think that's a pretty good point that you touched upon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Going to the, yep.
they need guidance. Some of
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
they want to feel coached, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you're
They need
working.
that mentoring. They need that coaching. Like, I mean, they need that support whenever
Yeah,
they, especially. Yep. Yeah. More important than really being physically, Rashid. I think that's a very good point that you touched upon. Yeah.
yeah.
Going to the next question, Rashid, like next point in general. Like, I mean, so how do people cope up with, I think you really touched upon in the previous one, like, I mean, you touched upon, like, let's say if the team is distributed working across different time zones, like, man, so I keep getting constantly asked a question, like, I mean, so which time zone the entire team has to work in, like, I mean, because now that the teams are across the globe, like, I mean, so there could be anywhere people working, like, I mean, at any point in time, like, I mean, you will have certain set of people working and always available, right? Like, I mean, so, and also how do you measure few things like productivity in a remote setup, Rashid? Like, I mean, so any thoughts on the, especially the productivity part? Like, I mean, so I understand in a physical world we have things like attendance and things like that, and in remote there's nothing called as attendance. Like, I mean, it's not the number of hours or count of hours that the person has worked on, but the impact or real metrics that he was able to move it on project. But generally, what's your views in terms of productivity measurement and things around, like whether it's in terms of appraisals, whether it's in terms of doing the entire process that we do in a regular way? Rashid, any thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I think that's a really good question. And I would say, well, you said that in a physical environment, people has this feeling that everyone is being productive, right? That has
Yep, yep.
it has been like that for the past years, but now things are changing. I think that part of the physical work environment is misguiding, because some organizations tend to measure false, I say it's false productivity by how many people they have in the office during the week, right? Or how many hours they are sitting in front of a computer,
Yep.
or if
Yep.
it's a movement of whether if they are showing up early or late.
Early, or
Those
whether they're pulling a late nighter or like late in the office, like staying late and all this stuff, right? Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and so far those have been the metrics to measure part of the productivity. But I say that is misguiding, because I have seen that you can do the same or even more, a bigger amount of work in less time when you're on your own and when you're remote. Because yeah, I mean, you're putting away that social part of having a break at the kitchen and catching up with your friends at the office, which is really nice. But now, as you don't have everyone around you, well, you just can't get you just focus on doing the job done, and then after that you can hang out with your friends either remotely or maybe in person or whatever, depending on how things in the pandemic are going for you. But I'd say productivity should be measured by your roadmap. If
Yep.
your milestones and dates, then that's how you measure productivity. It doesn't matter if someone did it in one day or did it in 1 week, as long as you hit the milestones, right? So yeah, but when you have new people on your team and you don't know what pace they have, well, my way of measuring productivity or potential productivity is just spending a lot of time with them. Like, as I told you, not supervising, not as a supervisor, just like, hey, show me how fast you're going, or show me what you have done so far.
Yep. Not
But
micromanaging or supervising. Yep.
no,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
of course not. But as a guide, as a mentor, hey, how do you see this picture so far? Do you have a question about this development environment, or about the tools that we're using? What do you think of this approach? Do you have any new ideas? And you open a space for conversation with your new teammates, and you can start, if you're sensible enough, or I mean sensitive enough, you start getting the idea of how they think and how fast they solve things, and you start getting an idea of when or how, what their pace is, right? Because you have been interacting with that person or that group of people. So spending time with the newcomers gives you an extra tool to estimate your whole timeline. If you see it as a project manager, you're building on top of people. People is the factor, or the people are the ones building the product. So if you're managing the product, you need to understand people, and you need to trust people, and you need to try to predict people, at least
Yep.
certain aspects
Yep.
of people in your team, right?
Yep.
So that way
Yep.
you can create more precise calendars, and give a better picture and timeline to your stakeholders on when and why features will be ready or not, right? Because you know your people. So I think the secret is getting to know the people, so you can
Yep.
estimate.
Yep.
And of course, the usual productivity tools and measures. You can measure by story points, or by quantity of features finished, by in a week or in a sprint. So I would say that if you want to monitor productivity, you should focus on the things that you are producing, right? Not the time that people spend online or in the office.
Awesome, awesome, Rashid. This is really, really insightful. Rashid, so you're one of very few guys who have been doing remote way before this pandemic and lockdown. So how was that part, Rashid? Like, I mean, from seeing people around you, like, I mean, getting into remote over the last 1.5 year. Like, I mean, so you have been being a remote person, like, I mean, from a long time. How was that journey so far, Rashid? Like, I mean, probably you're, like, I mean, you have been doing it much before this pandemic was there.
Yeah, well, uh, I it, enjoyed remote work as soon as I jumped in, right? It has very obvious advantages, and it's kind of funny because I was I was the weird one among my friends who was working remote. Uh, there is this digital nomad concept that it was fictional for so many
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
a few months ago. But now that everyone is more or less, in less or a bigger quantity, jumping into remote work, they some of my friends come and say, hey, now I get you. Now I know what you do. Now I understand
Yeah.
why you didn't wanna hang with us. You said
Yeah.
you were busy, but I would think that you were just home. And now I understand that being home is actually you get to work even more, right?
Yeah.
You just work becomes more intense because you're just focusing on work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one part. And when first at first family and friends were asking me, hey, they were saying, hey, my life has changed this way or this other way, and I miss this part, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna adapt to this new reality. What about you? And I would say,
Yeah.
hey, well, I miss going out for the pizza. Now the pizza is
It
delivered
comes
to,
to me. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
my house, but that's the only thing that has changed for me, right? so,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Yeah. I
mean,
think just like you mentioned on a lighter note, Rashid, I think probably you're born for remote. I think way before remote was there. Yeah.
yeah, trying to learn from that joke. I think that I have always been focusing on efficiency and productivity.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm an
Hmm.
engineer, and we
Hmm.
tend to obsess
Hmm.
with efficiency, right?
Hmm.
Just because that's who we are, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So even for social aspects and other aspects of life that
Hmm.
are not meant to be efficient, right?
Hmm.
I always want them to be efficient. so
Yeah.
um, what was I saying that?
Yeah. About the lighter note on remote, you meant for remote, Rashid. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So when remotes come, it's just the opportunity, the perfect
Yeah.
opportunity
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
prove your point, right? To prove that everyone can get rid of so many things that were taking productivity away and efficiency
Hmm.
away, and
Hmm.
eventually those things hit your quality of life
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you spend more time
Hmm.
at the office that with your
Hmm.
family, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
I have seen so many organizations that
Hmm.
have a reduced,
Yeah.
have reduced their working hours,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they get same or even better results, and
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
gets to
Hmm.
spend more time with their loved
Hmm.
ones. So
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
yeah, we're
In
getting
fact, the very, very good positive outcome of remote is having a good work-life balance, Rashid, which was missing in the previous way. Like a lot of time used to be spent in commute, like unproductive things and things around that. Like even so now, I think the people are having like pretty good work-life balance and all, Rashid. I think people are seeing the merits of remote working. Yeah.
Yes, and after this is over, this pandemic is over, everyone will have the option to go back to
Mm,
their office, and
mm,
many people will enjoy going back, but
mm,
we will all be more we will be aware of what things bring value to our lives and what things don't, right?
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Yep, yep. Very valid points, Rashid. There. Yep. Rashid, so I think, what are you as a person, like outside of work, outside of regular things and all? Like, I mean, what are your hobbies, interests, and all, Rashid? Like, just to know more about yourself.
Yeah, well, you know, I think for me, work and my personal life and my work are like really tied together because fortunately for me, I have always worked in what I like.
Hmm,
And I think that's a blessing. And I would wish that everyone could say that
hmm,
to well, of course, with remote work, everything gets even more mixed, right? So it's not ideal because you don't know when you're spending time for yourself and where you're working. But other than that, I have always enjoyed my work, and my work has been um, is about being a creator, an inventor. I think of myself as an inventor, right? I always um, I've always liked thinking of new ways and products and things to help others. And being a product manager gives me that opportunity to take someone else's idea and enhance it to be more valuable to everyone in the
yeah.
world
Yep.
yeah, and um, so I enjoy a lot what I do and creating. So when I am not working, that would be doing the same thing, but just not getting paid for that. I'm still creating, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I have discovered that I'm really passionate about open source projects. In the
Interesting.
past,
Okay.
I have
Yep. Hmm, hmm,
projects. With all that I know and all my experience and all my resources, try to contribute to projects at not precisely or not only in tech, because
hmm.
there are so many types of open source projects. They could be social,
Yep.
they can be green projects, right? They can be politics. So I like getting into
Hmm,
projects that are
hmm,
open to everyone, not just
hmm.
about code, but
Got it.
they invite society
Hmm,
to participate in a
hmm,
better future. So
hmm,
I have discovered that I like jumping to this kind of projects, and some of them are about politics, some of them are about technology,
hmm,
and some of them are about economics. So
hmm,
I like interacting with communities and learning from
hmm,
them and
hmm,
contributing to
hmm,
them,
hmm,
right? So
hmm,
that has become a hobby
hmm,
in the last years.
hmm,
And the other one is music. I
hmm,
have played music since I was 10.
hmm.
So I play a lot of different instruments. I play drums and guitar and piano, and I
Interesting.
haven't
Hmm.
mastered my violin yet. That's
Hmm,
one thing I need
hmm.
to do
That's on your
right.
bucket list. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, music is I wouldn't say a hobby. It's
Hmm,
just part of who I am.
hmm, hmm. Interesting. This is super interesting. I think you look like a very creative person that way, Rashid. I think having this multitude of things. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and right now I'm so into cooking, but that's just a new hobby that I don't know if that will last.
yeah.
But
I,
I
I think
like,
it's a good hobby to have during this work from home. Pretty good, Rashid. I think that's like pretty good hobby
yeah,
to have. Yeah.
yeah. I bought a grill for my birthday last year, just right before the pandemic started. So I was just, getting good at it and having friends that invited to have a barbecue. And just a few weeks later, the pandemic started and the lockdown started. So my plans of becoming a grill cook got frustrated. So I'm just retaking that now. But yeah, that's just a hobby at the moment.
Awesome, awesome. This is really cool, Rashid. Awesome.
Yeah.
Rashid, so probably coming to the last couple of questions. So this is for our audience here. Just wanted to know what are your top three favorite books?
Okay, that's a good question. When I usually when I get asked about my top music or movies or books, I have a hard time because I don't think I have a favorite song or a favorite movie or a favorite book. They all come to my life at certain points, and I learn from them, according to that context. So when I at a certain point of my life, when I needed inspiration, this book came to me, which is Steve Jobs' biography by Walter Isaacson.
Yep, yep.
I think it shaped my personality back then, and it helped me gain the insights that I needed for what I was trying to achieve. So that's a book that I remember with love. That's one. Um, then, if something that has nothing to do with work or professional experience, I just love the whole saga of Lord of the Rings, from The Hobbit to the Return
Awesome.
of.
Even I have been a pretty big fan of LOTR, Rashid. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that. Okay, and it has nothing to do with work or professional
Work or
aspirations.
anything. Yeah. Yep.
But as
Yep.
this is, yeah. So this is product management podcast. I think another great book that helped me with that was, of course, back then the Lean Startup. I think we are all children of that culture.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And lately, I have found so many good books from the product school list. I have read a couple of them. They're great. One of them is the product book by the product school. I think that summarizes modern practices of product management. I would say that for the past 8 years, um, the core of product management hasn't changed. It's always it's always the metrics, and always listening to your customers and
Yep.
validating
Yep.
campaign fast, right?
Yep.
So that hasn't changed. What has changed is how you relate to other teams and to other stakeholders, and those kind of practices, because management has it has gained importance. So many companies are becoming product first now, and I would say that is summarized in this book, the product book. And if you like product management, you should read that.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I think, in fact, even this is like on top of my list as well, Rashid. Like even Lean Startup. Yep, pretty good.
Yeah, great.
Rashid, so what are your top three favorite remote tools? The tools that you use day in day out. Tools that you can't live without. You can't without putting a day. Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, Slack and Jira are my two best friends, but I
Yeah.
think that's pretty much for everyone.
Yeah.
I like this wonderful tool, which is Metabase for
Interesting.
I
Dashboarding and analytics.
yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
friendly, and it's open source also. So I really like this. I like Zipboard, which is visual feedback tool, and it helps a lot when you have some technical stakeholders on the team. You just give them this Chrome extension, and they can start drawing on top of your mock-ups, or even your release product, and send you feedback with all the information needed. So I love that. It simplifies a lot my life. And for more technical people, Sentry. monitoring all
the bug monitoring,
issues and bugs and everything. Just
Hmm.
you can know about issues even before your users, and you can
Hmm.
work on them. So
Hmm.
I love
Hmm.
that also.
Hmm.
And well, just as a bonus, everything that has to do with DevOps has simplified my life.
Hmm.
Everything that regarding pipelines,
Hmm.
you can automate your team's work, your revisions, your releases, your whatever.
Hmm.
So you
Hmm.
focus on product and people, not
Hmm.
just on
Hmm.
technical pipelines.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. Very interestingly, Rashid, I have been a pretty core user of Metabase as well. Even as of today, we use Metabase for our complete internal dashboard and analytics.
Yeah, it's great. I think they're doing a great job. And
Yeah. Awesome. Rashid, so how is Mexico in general? For remote working, for travel, any pointers, any insights for everyone across who is listening to this podcast, Rashid, about Mexico? Like what places they should visit? Are there any good spots like people should be working from Mexico?
oh well, Mexico is a pretty big country, and because of that, it has a lot of a lot of it's like being in different countries depending on the part
Hmm.
of Mexico that you are. The
Hmm.
north is
Hmm.
like different from the south and the center.
Hmm. Hmm.
So of
Hmm.
course, we are famous for our beaches.
Hmm.
So well, that's one thing. We have the pre-Hispanic culture everywhere
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
Mexico, so that's really cool stuff. And food, if you like spicy food, that's great.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in terms of professional, in professional context, I would say that re- remote work is. I see that many companies are expecting to get back to how things were before
Yep.
before pandemic.
Yep.
I would
Yep.
say that half of the companies
Hmm.
have learned from this pandemic and have
Hmm.
liked the
Hmm.
remote philosophy, and the other half is just not enjoying a
Hmm.
remote culture. So I would
Hmm.
say we have those two streams, and we would see
Hmm.
something interesting because
Hmm.
some of the companies will remain remote forever, as
Forever.
everywhere,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and some will try to pull people back to how they were. So I
Hmm.
don't think how that will turn out,
Hmm.
but that's an interesting thing to observe. And well, we have a privileged location. We are very, very close to our neighbor, United States. So this
Hmm.
has become a strategic base
Yep. Yep.
for launching startups
Hmm.
to here to South America. So
Hmm.
we have a very vibrant environment and ecosystem for startups, especially fintechs.
Hmm.
They are thriving,
Hmm.
starting in Mexico, and then moving towards South America, because
Hmm. Hmm.
we have access to North American technology, to North American
Hmm.
funding, and we have
Hmm.
a pretty big market to test new
Hmm.
products for
Hmm.
Latin America,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
after we have them validated and
Hmm.
stabilized in Mexico, then
Hmm.
you can get
Hmm.
to to Latin America, to South America, to other markets.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I have seen a lot of growth in
Hmm.
fintech startups in
Hmm.
Mexico. And some of them have become unicorns, and they are,
Hmm.
there's a whole list of to be unicorns in
Hmm.
Mexican startups.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. I think good to see the ecosystem evolving, Rashid. In fact, I've been a fan of Latin American startups in general. I've been following this particular company called New Bank, which is like a digital bank,
Oh yes, of
which is
course.
really doing really, really well in the Latin American markets. I think the new innovation is coming across the globe, Rashid. I think that's the beauty of remote working. So now the innovation is happening even beyond Silicon Valley or anywhere, right? So it can be from any location, any corner of the world. Like, I mean, that's the beauty of remote working, Rashid. Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? I have seen that lots of American companies, they have been the first to react to this new reality, and they are jumping into Mexico right away. They have started hiring um, talent from Mexico and from Colombia, especially those two countries, but also from other countries. So I have seen that they are the first to react to this new way of working and growing. So now we have lots of American companies coming to Mexico and Latin America, hiring talent for really cool tech products, really cool startups, and not only startups, but also big companies. So yeah, that's gonna turn interesting in a few years.
Interesting. One very interesting point I keep getting, Rashid. So, given the virtue of what we do, like, I mean, CrewScale is a marketplace for connecting the global talent. Like, I mean, all the remote workers, whoever is looking for work, like, I mean, the top talent. So, a lot of companies, a lot of clients, Rashid, like, I mean, keep asking us, like, I mean, how do we get more Latin American developers? What do you suggest? Like, I mean, so what do you suggest both CrewScale and, like, I mean, so the developer community, like, I mean, to get together and work in a more collaborative way, Rashid? Like, I mean, where do we find developers? Like, what are the hot spots? Like, I mean, pretty good spots in Latin America, especially Mexican, Brazil areas. Like, I mean, so from your point, like, I mean, so where do you think are these hot spots where we can work with a lot of developers, Rashid?
Well, I can speak about Mexico. I think
Yep.
that um, Mexicans would be very welcoming to foreign tech companies. I think that is just there is just a lack of awareness about re working remotely for foreign companies because our let's say our economy is kind of um, it's like very traditional. So a great many of new people and talent, they are looking into always the same sectors, right? Always the same companies. We have like the leaders in certain industries. So most Mexicans look to join those leaders, but I say that if they were aware that they are joining worldwide communities and worldwide companies, they would do, very happily. So I would say that approaching um, talent sources like universities and tech hubs and tech clubs and engineering associations, we're talking about tech, approaching them and presenting them this opportunity of joining companies through CrewScale, that would turn really interesting to them. I just think that they are not aware yet that they can do that because we have the market leaders and they are, grasping, I mean, grabbing all the talent towards the company.
Yep, yep,
But
yep, yep.
you can present a new initiative and get their attention, they will happily turn to joining the worldwide community. So I think they are ready to be taken, just they are not aware yet.
Hmm. 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 Interesting, interesting. Yep. I think, Rashid, so I think thanks a lot for everything, Rashid. I think this is a really, really good conversation about remote and your insights on remote, especially being a remote worker from a long time. I think these are really, really helpful for our audience, Rashid. I think this is a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raghu. I have enjoyed this conversation. You know, time just flew by, and I hope this
Yeah,
has
yeah,
been.
yeah. So it was like a very, very good conversation, Rashid. I think it
Yeah,
just kept on going. Yeah.
yeah. I hope the audience has got very valuable insights. So yeah, sure.